Hey, what's your problem? You have business problems? We have business solutions.
Yep.
Well, maybe.
No.
Life is a fight.
It is.
In business, every day is a fight.
Yeah.
So, hey, what's your problem?
Yeah, you know, as much as we say it's always something and we try to subscribe to the fact that life just gets better, when you realize it's always something, sometimes you still get annoyed and frustrated. But that is the premise of this podcast, trying to find the solutions of everyday business owners and professionals throughout Middle Tennessee and talk through the problems and the it's always somethings. Got to give a shout out to JD Wells for being the big voice guy of the podcast. This is a podcast that is about and is for the Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. It is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. It's been a minute for me to do a recording. As you can tell, I've got a little congestion going on, some allergies. Just got over a double ear infection. That's always fun. I am your host, Jim McCarthy with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com. And today we got Mr. Michael Clark, another fellow B&Ier. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, man. Good to have you on. Thank you for coming by. It's always enjoyable to talk to you because you're a history buff.
I am.
And I like talking about history every now and then. So the way we get things started, to get things kind of fun going and everything, we've got something called the Dad Joke Challenge.
Okay.
Excuse me with my voice. Again, gotta love springtime in Middle Tennessee and as of last week in Las Vegas. So I have those two dynamics going on.
Oh boy.
So the Dad Joke Challenge is voiced and produced by Mr. Ed Fox at Trade Bank, and he's a sponsor of it. So if you're a business that's got extra inventory or unused services, maybe things are slow, but you still want to monetize those services, Trade Bank is for you. This is the best way to use your unused services or products, unsold items, to get the things that you don't want to pay cash for. So if you need phone system services for your business, if you maybe need some printing for your business, try Trade Bank. There are businesses on that network that are willing to trade with you for your services and use your trade dollars for what you need to operate your business. Not a bad thing when things are maybe a little slow. So there we go. Dad Joke Challenge is all about dad jokes, obviously. As we know, Ed Fox is a connoisseur and an author of dad jokes and can pull probably 10 of them out at once, right?
At least.
And go in rapid fire. So here we go. He's actually voicing it. Hopefully this works. Hold on. No. Okay. It's doing its thing again. It doesn't feel like playing. Okay. I just had it working.
It was working. I heard it.
Did you hear about the young lady that loved cars so much? One night she dreamt she was a muffler. Next morning, she woke up exhausted.
Wow. Typically, the first one we kind of go, okay. The second one always has promise and gets a guffaw. Excuse me.
Last night, my wife and I watched 3 TV show episodes back to back. Luckily, I was the one facing the TV.
See what I mean?
That's actually a pretty good one.
I'll give that a dingy. Okay, so here we go. Next one.
What do you call a salamander that goes to space? An astronaut.
I knew that one. I'd heard that one before.
Have you heard that one?
I've actually heard that one.
Typically, I wanted to make it a competition to see who could break and laugh, and then we lose points according to it. But, we just kind of listen to them. It gets fun. We should probably make it a competition, and I should be more formal about it, but haven't gotten there yet.
Have you heard about this new fad diet that's all cashews all the time? That's just nuts.
Still like the other one better.
Yeah, that one was definitely grown-tastic.
You know what you need to do is you need to have Ed on with like a panel and have him firing off dad jokes and just, seeing who he can break first.
Yeah, but the thing is, a panel of people?
Yeah, a panel of people.
I thought you meant like a panel in front of him, where he fires off the buttons.
Just get, like 3 or 4 people.
You've seen the technical difficulties I've been having here today.
True.
Yeah, I don't need another one. Here we go, the last one.
What do you get if you cross an angry sheep and a moody cow?
Oh boy.
An animal that's in a bad mood.
Wow.
And here I am laughing at him like a dumbass.
But, you know, sadly, I do that to my family too. Whenever we pass like a farm and, you know.
Yeah. You make the farm animal.
I make the bad joke.
There's just something within us that when we get to a certain age, that we have to make our families grown.
Oh, yeah.
It's just something with what we do. Well, there you go. There's the Dad Joke Challenge brought to you by Trade Bank of Nashville. I want to say go to nashville.tradebank.com is the website. All the information is also in the description of this podcast. So check it out if you want to look into it for yourself for your business. I highly recommend it. Thank you, Mr. Ed Fox. And on to you, Mr. Michael Clark, sir. So tell us about your background, how you got into everything. I know your seat in BNI is helping businesses build credit.
Business credit to
business
be specific.
Credit.
Yep.
Right.
So as far as how I got into that or just my life story?
Well, you know, when it gets interesting, you know, the formative years, you know, maybe when you went to college, what did you want to do? How did you become entrepreneurial? That kind of thing. What influenced you?
That's a really good question. I actually, when I graduated high school, I wanted to go to college to study psychology. And then never took one psychology course.
Wow. That was similar to what I kind of was on that trajectory too. I love psychology.
Yeah. And I honestly don't think I've ever read one psychology book.
Really?
Yeah.
Did you take a class in high school?
Nope. I just
you just wanted to take psychology.
Yeah. You know, I just wanted to, you know, I thought being a counselor would be a great idea. And
right.
I actually took one sociology course.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from the professor who taught that course was also the same professor who would basically taught intro to psychology. He would have been like, you know, the guy, you know, if I would have pursued psychology. And yeah, I didn't mesh well with him.
It was fun in high school for me. I really understood it. I got it. It was like accounting. I took accounting in high school too, and I loved it. It was practical, useful information. But when it came to the psychology part of it, it was also practical, useful information. But once I got to college, it became really difficult. And I was like, okay, I'm out.
I didn't even they didn't even offer accounting in high school.
Really?
Yeah, I went to a really small private school in Houston.
Right.
And so it's a K through 12 school, and to this day, Latin is a required course 6th through 12th grade.
Oh, so, that's practical.
Yeah, well, you know, it's good for doctors and lawyers.
I guess.
You know,
I mean, do they have to learn Latin as a language, like rote?
You have to know how to translate it.
Really?
Yeah.
My brother's an attorney. He's never talked about that.
Yeah, it probably just helps when you're in law school, and then once you're out of law school, you probably don't have any practical application to it.
Huh. I've seen a lot of the et als and all that stuff that they use in the documents that they write.
Yeah.
So going into college, it was a psychology major, but that changed.
That changed.
Right.
So when I was in college, I needed a part-time job. So I got a job with Sam's Club because it was the new and exciting thing.
Sure.
And it paid a heck of a lot more than minimum wage.
Yeah.
And the Sam's Club that I worked at was it was the top store in Houston and one of the top stores nationwide.
Right.
Like it was a bad week if we finished out of the top 5 in sales.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And when at that time, that was also when Sam Walton had gotten diagnosed with cancer. And so he would come down from Arkansas to the Texas Medical Center for cancer treatments, doctor's appointments, and what have you. And he just didn't fly in and fly out. You know, when he flew to Houston, he went around to the stores, and he stopped in our store a lot.
Really?
Yeah. And well, because, you know, we were one of the flagship locations.
And you were kind of like the model that he was basing everything else off.
Essentially.
Okay.
And so when he came in, he didn't want to, he didn't want to sit in in an office or a conference room and talk to managers. He wanted to be out there on the floor, talking to customers, talking to the people that were helping the customers. So I got to walk the floor with him like 3 or 4 times.
That's cool.
It was great.
It's funny. It just dawned on me. That's why it's called Sam's Club.
Yeah.
I had no idea. I didn't make that correlation up until now. This is how much of a idiot I am. Because I knew they were owned by Walmart.
Right.
Or they were, a part of the Walmart universe.
Yeah.
But I'd never made the correlation that Sam's Club was based off of his name.
Yeah.
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 What a moron I am.
So you wouldn't be the first to
Right.
not put two and two together there.
I'll embrace my moronicness.
But yeah, essentially getting to, walk a sales floor, with one of the legends of American business.
Oh, yeah.
That would be like going backwards in time and, working on, the first car production line with Henry Ford.
Sure. Sure. Working on the first Mac with Steve Jobs and Wozniak.
Yeah.
But I mean, looking at, we look at these guys and we herald them as geniuses, right? And a lot of the people that surround them helped their genius persona. Was it planned that Sam got that big, or did it just happen by having long obedience in the same direction and, luck?
I think there's a bit of luck in every person's success, regardless of what their field of endeavor is. And, I think Sam just hit on a good idea, and it was at the right time for it.
Well, I mean, Walmart back in the day was just kind of another department store.
Yeah.
And then it evolved into just lifestyle goods that were priced comfortably.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and one of the things that they pioneered was, man, they really understood, the whole cost thing.
Yeah.
And by the time I started working for the company, there was this kind of legend that, if you had a product that you wanted to sell to Walmart or Sam's Club, and you went to the home office in Bentonville, you better have your A+ game on, because chances are the person sitting across the table knew more about your product than you did.
Right. Or they saw it from a very objective perspective.
Right.
But I mean, it's like having an opportunity to get a record deal in the 70s and 80s.
Yeah.
Getting company with somebody at an organization that large, or, let's say a Capitol Records or something like that, doesn't necessarily guarantee you rock stardom.
No.
Right? Yeah, we'll take your product on, but it doesn't mean it's getting top shelf presentation.
Well, and then once Walmart grew to a certain size, they were just able to dictate terms.
Oh, sure.
And why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And then, anybody who's getting into that part of their life or part of their profession or their product or whatever, they're just happy to have Walmart rep there, even though it could be detrimental financially to them.
Well, Walmart, I don't think Walmart would necessarily make it detrimental to people, but you might not have gotten as much profit as you thought you were.
Right. Well, I mean, they were making you.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point.
Yeah. I mean, they were able to draw the line in the sand and say, okay, here's our offer. Well, how much negotiation space do we have? None.
Right. And you got to wonder if that's even shifting now. I mean, because you could put your own stuff on Amazon.
Yeah.
And sell it and make it go for it.
Absolutely.
They get a piece of the pie, but it's up to you to really get the promotion.
It is. Yeah. I mean, you still have to market yourself.
Yeah. You still have to make sure it's a decent product that solves a problem that's widespread.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the, when Walmart came on the scene, on the nightly news, they always used to talk about, the Dow Jones Industrial Average and the New York Stock Exchange. And I forgot what it was called. What was it? Where they had the NASDAQ, things like that. And, I was working for the company when they booted Woolworths.
Oh, wow.
Off of
NASDAQ.
Off of that composite score, and replaced them with Walmart.
Was that on the Dow?
That was on the Dow. That must have been on the Dow.
Yeah, because they get delisted if they go below a certain value for a certain amount of time.
Yeah, and Walmart, they got booted off in favor of Walmart because Walmart was a bigger retailer.
It makes sense.
And you
Woolworth had their time.
They had their time.
Speaking of history.
Well, and look just how things have changed in just our short lifetime. I mean, there was no better place to go for a while than Toys R Us for toys.
Well, they didn't adapt quick enough. They could have been, I think it was toys.com was there for a while. If I were Toys R Us, they just tried to hold on to that bricks and mortar approach for way too long. But when you can get all the stuff that you want and have it delivered to your doorstep, it is fun to go through a toy store, though.
It is.
There could be, a time where that makes a comeback. You remember, all the malls had the KB toy stores.
Yes.
I'm not sure if they're still around.
I can't remember the last time I've seen one.
It was a highlight for my mall youth to go to one of those stores.
Well, and the other thing in malls was video game arcades.
Yeah. It was huge.
If your parents handed you a $10 bill, you were spending hours at the arcade.
Yeah, $10. It's like playing that at the Nichols Locks in Vegas. Your drinks and several hours of entertainment.
Exactly.
I only say that because I just got back. I played my first table game in Vegas.
What did you play?
I lived there for 4 years, from 01 to 05, and I never played a table game. Probably because I was in radio and didn't have any expendable cash.
Fair.
Similar to the teaching profession as is now.
Yeah.
So this time around, I'm like, I had some cash in my pocket, going jing-a-ling-a-ling, and or change in my pocket. But it was cash. It was about $37. And, pathetically, I took my cash wad out, and one of my teammates here and I stopped at a blackjack table at Binion's Horseshoe in downtown Vegas. And $10 minimum bets. I was done in about 5 minutes. So
I've been to Vegas once. Mm-hmm. I took $160 to gamble with.
Right.
And played $5 black. That's the only game I played was $5 blackjack.
Really?
And
whereabouts?
I got there on a Saturday, and I was staying at the Luxor.
Okay.
And I hit the casino floor about 5 p.m. And I stayed. I roughly gambled for about 5-6 hours.
Oh, that took you a while. Yeah.
And I ended the night $50 up.
Good.
And I thought, well, this is great.
Yeah.
Vegas is an awesome place.
It was fun. I was here for a couple of hours of entertainment, and I came away $50 bigger.
Yep. And then the next day, I went to the Las Vegas Hilton and started gambling, and I lost about half of that money.
Right.
And then I was like, well, this is a bad luck casino. So I went back to the Luxor and lost the rest of it.
Yep.
So
they'll get you one way or another.
They will. And I still had two more days to spend in Vegas.
Yeah. Now what do you do?
Well,
where's an ATM?
Yeah. Well, no. I'm the kind of guy Vegas doesn't like to see because I brought money to gamble with, and once it was gone, I stopped.
Right. Well, I mean, you look at it that way. You got several hours of entertainment.
I did.
Yeah. That's the way you got to look at it.
And some free drinks.
Right.
Yep.
For us, it was whenever we would have people visit us, Courtney and I would always be up. So they'd want to go out in the town, go to the strip, hang out in a casino. We would literally get there. This had happened just about every time we had people in town, and we'd accompany them to the strip because we were typically their rides. And they'd go off and do their thing. Courtney and I would just we've seen this thing a million times.
Sure.
But we'd always play the Megabucks machines, which was Nevada's version of the lottery. So we'd stick a 20 in, 3 credits every time, so that's the only way you're going to win. And one time we stuck $20 in, boom, $650.
Nice.
Cash out, looked at my wife, and I said, so now what do you want to do? That took all of 40 seconds,
Hey, but you won.
We did. I'm like, I'm not going back. This is we're cash flow positive at this point.
Right.
We're keeping it. So yeah, that I think that paid our rent, and that was very nice at that point.
Yeah. Well, anytime you can walk out of a casino,
you just got to know when to
and have
know
more
when
than
to
you
roll.
want. Yeah, Yeah.
Yeah. And it's you just understand it. You don't gamble more than you can afford.
Right.
And you just don't think that it's going to be your night. It could be.
It could be.
I've seen it happen where they hit the big jackpots and all of a sudden the security comes out and surrounds the patron and they're an instant millionaire. It's crazy.
Or
their life has changed.
Yeah, until they have to pay taxes on it.
But still.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you're still, you win $30 million, fine. Here's your freaking $13 million, government.
Yeah.
Go pound sand.
One of my I love that saying, pound sand.
Yeah. Get me started on the IRS and taxes. So
that's a different podcast.
Yeah. We could talk about that here. So you got into business credit how? But you tell me, bring us through the story again. We left off at college.
Yeah, so I actually ended up working for Sam's Club for about 10 years. And then they transferred me to Iowa.
Right.
And Iowa was great, believe it or not. You know, it was an absolutely fun time in my life. I had a ton of friends up there and still do. But things changed family-wise. My grandmother started getting really sick. She was older.
Right.
And I really wanted to get back to Houston, which is where I grew up. And they didn't have any spots. So I'm like, well, you know, family was more important. So I transferred. I actually demoted myself out of management, went back to Houston, and then eventually got in the restaurant business and managed high volume restaurants for 10 years.
Right.
And then I kind of bounced around a little bit. I worked for a couple of different companies. I did insurance. I worked for Apple for a year and a half.
Right.
Which was, that was really fun.
Right.
Great company to work for. I can't say enough about Apple. And, when I worked for them for a year and a half, and I won a free iPhone, a free Apple Watch, an iPad, and a mouse.
Not bad.
No, that wasn't bad at all.
That's quite a bit of value.
Yep.
Absolutely.
The only thing though is with my family, the only thing I was allowed to keep was the mouse.
Oh, because they claimed everything else.
My wife and my kids claimed everything else.
Of course they did.
Yep.
How many kids do you have?
I have 2.
Older or older?
20 and 10.
Oh yeah, that's interesting ages. Yeah. A little spread out.
It's a little spread out.
So getting into business credit, how did that all happen?
So I was actually working for. I was actually working in the funeral and cemetery business.
Yeah, you've done everything.
A little bit.
My goodness.
I actually did, and I did insurance for a year too.
Right. That insurance is a grind. You really gotta. You really gotta put your time in.
Yeah, and I'm trying to think if anything I left. I worked for Whole Foods for a short time.
My goodness.
I've been all over the place.
Just finding who you are.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And my wife was shocked when I applied for the funeral and cemetery job.
Was that sales, I hope?
Oh, it was sales.
Okay.
Yeah, it was sales.
You're not like digging holes and everything.
No. But I was actually really good friends with the guys who did that.
Right.
Some of the best people that work for that company do that.
I find it difficult for you not to be good friends with people. You're so approachable and amenable. So.
Thanks.
Yeah.
But it was time for a change, and I stumbled across the business credit on LinkedIn of all places.
Oh wow.
And just kind of took a look at it, and I'm like, well, this is super interesting.
And your primary role is just to help businesses build their credit, or at least be aware of it?
Essentially, yes. So the way that I like to explain it is, Jim, you and I, we've got a FICO score.
Yeah.
And, I ask people, what did you do to get your FICO score? And they'll say something like, well, I paid no. You didn't do anything to get a FICO score other than apply for a credit account. And once you do that, then the credit reporting agencies start tracking everything you did, everything you do. You didn't have to fill out an application and send it in, or, log on to a website and upload your information. No. All you did was open an account, and then they start tracking you.
They do it for you.
Whether you want them to or not.
That's right.
In
want to
good
make sure they can
times and in
smear
bad.
your name in case you stop paying your bills.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So all that being said, well, if you're in business and you own your own business, if you have an LLC or an S Corp or a C Corp, you have an EIN number.
Right.
And that EIN number has a credit profile, just like you and I have a FICO score that's associated with our Social Security number.
Right.
Which a lot of people don't know that the EIN number even has a credit profile. But while on personal credit, everything happens automatically, nothing happens automatically on that EIN credit score.
Unless you do bad things.
Not even if you do bad things.
Really?
No. It's not even a guarantee that your EIN number gets registered with the credit bureaus. Automatically.
Wow.
You even have to do that. And I've talked to multiple business owners that they don't even know that their EIN number has a credit score.
I had no idea. I thought it was a Duns and Bradstreet.
Well, that's only one of them.
Right.
And so there's Experian Business and Equifax Business as well.
Huh.
Just like on the personal credit side, there's Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. Yeah. But while all of our Social Security numbers get automatically registered, the EIN number doesn't automatically get linked to those credit bureaus.
Even if you go for a business credit line or a loan with the EIN?
Correct.
So you have to actively, even if you go for a loan, you have to then, in order to become, I guess it would help for you to pursue it. It would bolster your business and make it easier to get funding.
Not necessarily.
So why would you do it then?
Well, because here's the deal. Like if you go to you go down to the local bank, you're personally guaranteeing it.
Right.
And so they're linking it to your Social Security number.
Yeah.
So if you go out and you get a loan for your business and something happens,
you're on the line.
You're on the hook for it.
Yeah.
And so the bank will come to you and say, well, we loaned you this money. You said you would pay it back.
Where is it?
Where's our money?
Yeah. Where's my money, man?
Exactly. It's exactly like The Godfather.
Yeah. Give me my money, man.
Right. And if you don't got it, that's why you've personally guaranteed it. So then they're going to look and say, okay, great. Jim, what assets do you have?
Yeah.
You got a house, you got cars, your kids have college funds.
I know where you live. I know where your wife shops. I know where you go to school.
Especially nowadays.
That's right. Nunzio and Carmine are watching it at every given moment. We don't need to pay a visit there.
Exactly.
I should have to do that.
Exactly.
Yeah. Different kind of bank.
100% different kind of bank. Yeah. I actually know a guy named Rocco. I wonder if he does that.
It's so stereotypical, man.
It is.
Profiling.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. But back to the EIN number, if you want to be able to use your EIN number instead of your social, you have to intentionally build that credit profile. And with our personal credit, there's a ton of things that go into the credit profile. So it's how many credit cards have you applied for?
Yeah, how fat is your file?
Well, and also how do you pay your bills?
Yeah.
Do you pay them ahead of time? Do you pay them on time? Do you pay them late? Do you never pay them?
Right.
Not only, how many hits does your credit take? Oh, you know what? We wanted to get new furniture for the living room, and you're going to finance it. Well, that's a credit hit.
Yep.
Not only how many credit cards have you applied for, but how many do you have? How much do you have charged on them? Debt to income ratio, things like that. On business credit, the only thing that matters is payment history.
Wow.
That's it. They don't care it doesn't matter how many credit cards you have on your business. Debt to income ratio is meaningless. In fact, on personal credit, at some point, banks and, places like, Best Buy or whatever, at some point they'll look at you and say, whoa, you have way too much debt.
Right.
We're cutting you off. Business credit works the opposite. The more you use, the more you get, which is
Makes
interesting.
sense. Yeah, because as long as you can justify it.
As long as you can justify it.
So with a business, if you're new, is it best to do this right on the front end or wait a couple of years in?
It depends on the business.
Okay.
Most of the time, absolutely start right off the bat.
Right.
But here's the deal, is you've got to have expenses, monthly expenses, that can be reported to the credit bureaus. So for example, you might be a, pardon the pun for you, Jim, a one-man show.
Right.
But if you don't have, really any monthly expenses, there's not a whole lot that can be done.
Right.
So, you just take a trucking company, for example. Well, great. Well, they're probably financing a truck. They've got fuel costs. They've got maintenance costs. Everything that goes into running a truck. Well, great. Those things can be reported.
Right.
Here's the trick. Only about 7% of vendors and some lenders will report to the credit reporting agencies. So you have to use companies that will actually report.
Okay.
And if you're not, then nothing. Then I mean, I have pulled credit reports for businesses of people that have been in business 6, 7, 8, 10 years. They've got nothing because nothing's ever been reported because the banks and vendors they use don't report.
And they're just basically relegated if they need a line of credit, it's attached to their personal.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Interesting.
And the thing with business credit is it differs. The other way it differs from personal credit is your FICO score is somewhere between 350 and 850.
Right.
Hopefully a lot closer to 850 than 350.
Now, I've been trying to crack 800 for the past 2 years.
You know what? If you're in the 700s, you're probably doing pretty good.
I'm in the upper 700s.
You're fine.
So I'm sure I'm fine, but it's still just, it's a goal.
Yeah,
I want
absolutely.
to see 800.
It's like a video game.
Yeah.
You're
I wanna
trying to get the high score.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I know how to get there.
Yeah.
It's just, trying to figure out how to, it just takes time and strategy.
Right.
And do you understand the FICO score, what they really mean?
What do you mean?
Like in terms of, for a personal FICO score, if you have a 780, let's say, do you know what that really translates to?
I honestly don't.
It means there's a 78% chance you're going to pay your bills on time.
Huh. I never knew that.
Yeah.
I never have delved into onto the personal credit side.
So it only goes up to 80. They're so cynical. You can't get 1,000. There's no 100%. It only goes up to 85% apparently.
Huh.
Yeah. That's how they see humanity.
So basically, if you think about that from a school perspective, the best you can be is a B student.
That's right. That's it.
And so if you have a 780, that's like a C plus.
I know.
So that means that C plus is actually really good.
Yeah.
I wish I could have explained that to my parents when I was in high school.
Yeah. My kids are lucky in the fact that I don't really, I say, look, your job right now is to get the best grades you can, and I know what you're capable of. If you're not doing that, I'm going to get on you. But none of this means anything.
Yeah.
None of it. None of this means a damn thing. Because you're going to find your way one way or the other. And I'm going to urge you and encourage you to find your way and understand that you can make it work.
Yeah.
No matter what you do, as long as it's not illegal or unethical.
Well, when my senior year in high school, I started the year in 12th place.
Right.
And by halfway through, I dropped to 13th.
Right.
And at the end of the year, I'd made it up to 11th. And the top 10 graduated with honors. But I graduated 11th in my class.
Out of how many?
36.
That's still pretty good.
That's still pretty good. But you know what it means now? Nothing.
Yeah. It's a fun story.
It's a cool story.
Yeah.
That's when, people look at, cool story, bro. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, you're also a history buff.
Yep.
Big on history. And
one thing
Sure.
back to the business credit really quick. Here's how business credit differs from your FICO score. It's only 0 to 100. And there's 4 tiers.
Right.
And you have to move tier to tier. You can't just, we've been in business for 10 years. This is what our monthly expenditures, and then all of a sudden, boom, you can start in tier 3.
It's like the Scientology of credit.
Wow. Wow.
You have to start at the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah. Even if you're Tom Cruise,
That's right.
you can't start higher.
All those guys they're all earning their way to something.
Honestly don't know if we want to be categorized that way, but in essence.
Right. The wedding cake of credit.
There you go. Let's go with the wedding cake of credit. There you go.
Very cool.
So, but you follow the system and it we've got a proven system. It works.
Right. And so for business owners, you just go in there and show them how to go about it.
Yeah.
Who to use that's going to do the reporting, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So is there a network that you guys are aware of or a part of that they join you? Or
So it's Jay Galt is the name of the company.
Right.
And so we are both a consulting company and a technology company. So we have a software portal that a business gets access to when they become a member. And then through that portal, they're able to see the vendors that they can use to be able to get stuff reported to the credit reporting agencies.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
So you got the network built in.
We do. And
Right on.
then we also assign we also assign a business a certified credit analyst.
Right.
So that way we guide you through every step of the way, because it would be really pointless for us to sit there and say, hey, great, thanks for becoming a member. Here's your access to the portal. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
So we guide you every single step of the way.
I would imagine it's overwhelming to look at it.
It's not really, but it can't, but for some people it can be confusing, because if you think about it, most people who start their own business, they don't start their own business because they're good at admin.
Right. They're starting, there's another urge behind it.
Right. Yeah. So, just
be my own boss.
Yeah. Well, either that, or if you just think about something, somewhat basic.
Yeah.
I really like being a plumber. Mm-hmm. Well, they didn't start their own plumbing business because they wanted to do the paperwork of a plumber.
They often never think about that part of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, for us, the biggest issue, the problem is getting people to understand that there is a better way.
What?
Are we there yet?
Problem?
Is this the problem?
This is the problem.
This is the problem.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to fire off the jingle.
Okay, I didn't know there was music.
Now it's official.
Okay. So here the problem is having folks understand that there is a different way for them to build their business without risking their personal assets and their family.
They just don't know. I was completely unaware.
Yeah.
And here we are. We've got a business here that's humming along.
Yep.
We've had a big success in Las Vegas last week with a trade show. A lot of leads. And, one of the things we got to do, we're the first year, we got to get our taxes finished and get them all turned in.
Sure.
We thought about, well, hey, we'll throw our banker a bone and open up a line of credit once our taxes are done. Because typically they want to see first year taxes at least.
Sure.
But, it would come in very handy at times to have that line, So.
But but as of right now, it's probably going to be personally guaranteed by you.
Probably. I know that from the last season that I was in.
Yeah.
We're still untying that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know there was music.
Yeah, well, that's all right, Yeah, by listening to the podcast, you find that out.
Yeah, I know. Right, exactly. And the sad thing is I actually have them downloaded on my phone.
Right.
I just haven't listened to all of them yet.
Well, we do it in every single episode with the music, but it's good. Not everybody listens to it. We're getting there. You will be assimilated. Resistance is futile. That's what Ed Fox talks about all the time.
Well, I am a Star Trek fan, so I get it.
That's right.
So there's the piece of trivia about me. I actually won the trivia contest at a Star Trek convention.
Really?
When I was in college.
I was really good with the MCU stuff when they had a couple of trivia contests over here at Fozzie's.
Yeah.
And I was just kicking butt and taking names up until the last damn question.
What was the last question?
It was name the years that these movies came out. So they gave I think maybe 3 or 4 movies. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Wow.
If I can't get this, I know most of these people here are not getting this.
Wow.
So I wagered, I don't know, about a third of where we are, but we had some margin. We were in the lead by, I don't know, 20, 25 points. So I was like, we'll just wager 20 points. And somebody in the back of that restaurant came out screaming, like somebody Googled something.
Yeah.
Somebody Googled. That just doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's the hard thing about doing trivia contests nowadays, is because everybody can just Google it on their phone and you can't even see them do it.
And I've seen it happen multiple times where out of nowhere, some table in the back wins the whole thing. And I'm like, okay, this isn't fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're Googling the last question and betting the farm. So.
Yeah, no fair.
No
fair.
Yeah. But, that was a fun experience. Historically speaking, I may not go back to it. So for business owners that are getting into, if you guys are listening and you want to get business credit, you really should reach out to Michael.
Correct.
And start going through the motions. Is it expensive? Is there an as low as kind of value proposition that you guys?
No, it's a set price.
Yeah.
It's a set price. And there's a couple of different options as far as, if you want to pay everything up front or do a payment plan, we have options.
Right.
It's typically a 1-year membership.
Right.
Because it takes about 9 to 12 months to build business credit. It's not a quick fix.
No, never is.
And then if you stay in the program after a year, it's a It's a pittance to stay in.
Right. And the question to ask as a business owner, how much is it worth to not have your personal credit history tied to your business?
Yeah.
Because scale and scope is a lot different for a business than it is for personal.
True.
So $1 million line of credit is nothing for a business.
Yeah.
It's a lot for a person.
It's a lot for a
most
person.
of us.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to be on the hook for $1 million line of credit.
Right.
I mean, not by a long shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe if I had a company that was doing 200 million a year in sales.
Well, yeah. I mean, and you're getting a nice paycheck out of that. By that you should be.
Yeah, you would hope.
Yeah. If it's not that way, then something's drastically wrong.
Well, when you're the CEO of a company and you're making some between 10 and 20 million a year with stock options.
Yeah.
You can be on the hook for $1 million line of credit.
You watch that show Succession?
Not yet.
No?
I want to.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's on my list.
We've been watching it. And I would have to imagine there's the notion that truth is indeed stranger than fiction.
Yeah.
At one point, they were talking about getting inheritances, and this cousin, that character in the show, talked about his inheritance would be about $250 million, and the rest of the family's looking at him, going, "You can't do anything with $250 million, dude." And I'm going,
"Yeah, I can."
The funny thing is, there are people out there actually that think that way. Yeah, you can't get anything done with $250 million.
Well, when I was still with Sam's Club, I believe this was, or I might have just left. I can't remember. No, because it was before Sam died. He gave each of his kids $1 billion.
$1 billion.
$1 billion. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
One B.
Wow.
Each one of his kids $1 billion.
I don't know if I could do that.
You mean as in accept it or give it?
No, as give it. You'd ruin someone's life if they're not disciplined.
Yeah.
There's no purpose there.
Yeah.
I want to give my kids purpose. Make sure they have purpose and fulfillment in their purpose.
I agree. Well, you would think that Sam felt confident doing that.
I'm sure he did, but I mean that's the conundrum. There are so many people. I've had Chris Hope on this podcast. He's a former NFL athlete. He was a Super Bowl champ, and we talked about that. Like, what do you do when your kids are kind of living in your shadow? You're the big star.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of big things. The pressure's on them to kind of do the same thing. We all want our kids to do better than we did. I said, even when it comes down to the money, dude, do you help them out, or you kind of say, no, you gotta make it on your own. You got to figure it out. That's how, well, I just want a multi-generational wealth. That could be a bad thing. We've seen it play out.
Yeah.
And that's where we get into history. Okay.
We do.
How many generations and how many empires have been built and fallen because they fell into unappreciative hands? They just don't know what it was like to grind.
Almost every single one of them.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, look, we just had the coronation of King Charles in England.
Which is meaningless.
Essentially, yeah.
It's just for pomp and circumstance.
It is for pomp and circumstance. But, you could, the British Empire still exists, but it's just a shadow of its former self.
Right.
There was a saying that at one point the sun never set on the British Empire.
Right.
Well, it does now.
Yeah. But I mean, what are we really? Are we just an extension of the Roman Empire?
As in the U.S.?
Yeah. Like an echo?
An echo, I would say, because here's the deal with that. A lot of people think that typically you're taught that the Roman Empire fell in 476.
Okay.
And that's when Europe kind of entered what is referred to as the Dark Ages.
Right.
Which, if you say that term to some medieval historians, they'll freak out on you.
Why is that?
Because it wasn't really that dark, according to them.
Why do they call it that, though?
Because government collapsed, society collapsed, and pretty much all, learning was essentially just centered through the church at the time.
Okay.
It wasn't the greatest period of time.
Right. How long did it last?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I honestly, decades.
Well, I mean, when they call it ages, what determines the length of an age? You know,
I don't know.
Because I mean, that's a reason why I love bringing up history, and I've brought this up several times before on this podcast. People have heard me talk about pendulum and how every 80 years, every 40 years, every 20 years, there's a cultural shift that happens.
Yeah,
And
of one form or another.
Yeah, and it has to do with generational thinking.
Yeah. Well, going back to the Roman Empire, the eastern half of the empire survived for another millennia.
Right.
And they reformed law. They were the ones who, essentially, created things that we know today.
Right.
So when they redid the Roman law code in Constantinople, well, it was called the Code of Justinian. Well, that Code of Justinian was, when the Renaissance happened, that Code of Justinian was essentially the backbone, the format for what became the Napoleonic Code.
Oh, okay.
And so, which of course has been copied by other countries, including us. We've used aspects of the Napoleonic Code.
Right.
But all of that traces back to what was called the Byzantine Empire, which that goes back to, ancient Rome. Right. So are we an echo? Yeah, in some ways.
I'd say even with government and the way we kind of conduct ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and with when you had learning returning to Europe, well, it came from the East. And the reason it came from the East is because you had artists and scholars, fleeing, what is the Holy Land, modern Turkey, modern Greece, modern Istanbul. They were fleeing and heading west because of the Muslim invasions.
Right.
And so they took all of that learning that had been lost in Europe back to Europe.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And that was the, like the Renaissance period, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially. So all of that learning that was preserved in the East got returned to the West.
So all things that were considered old were new again.
Correct.
That's interesting because that's Ecclesiastes.
Yeah.
Nothing new under the sun.
Nothing new under the sun.
And that's why I kind of hopefully instill hope in people in today's day and age where it seems dark. Now, according to Pendulum, we are in the darkest part of the pendulum swing right now. And essentially this year is going to look like 1943 all over again. And every 80 years, cyclically, we have some sort of calamity that basically hits the reset button and gets us back to a collective thought process okay, enough of the division, the divisiveness, the being at each other's throats, the witch hunts, things of that nature. Let's just get back to being nice to each other.
Yeah.
And there are 4 cultural attitudes that they talk about in the book, and it emerged in the 60s where I think it was called I'm Okay, You're Okay.
Oh, yeah, I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
And so there's 4 cycles to that. I'm not okay, you're okay. I'm not okay, you're not okay. I'm okay, you're not okay. Where do you think we are?
Probably neither side is okay.
No, I'm okay, you're not okay.
Yeah.
So we're living through a cycle of witch hunts, a lot of regret, looking back over our shoulders, finding out who caused the problem and assigning blame. We see a lot of that happening now.
We do, actually. Yeah, you're right.
It's rampant and it's popular. The good news is that with the zenith of where we are and the pendulum starts coming back down, it's a 20-year upswing and a 20-year downswing. So the next 20 years will be interesting because we listen for voices in the wilderness that I bet will say, okay, enough of the divisiveness, guys.
Yeah.
We got to be empathetic, or not empathic, empathetic.
Empathetic. That's how you say it. Yeah.
Have empathy for others, and if we can articulate our antagonist viewpoint better than they can, that's a good place to be. But
I would agree.
But what does that mean? It means that we are not okay.
Yeah.
That's the challenge. So if we have an I'm okay, you're not okay attitude, that you have to admit that you may not be okay. That's the challenge. There's pride in that.
And pride goeth before a fall.
That's right. That's right.
There's a reason why it's one of the 7 deadly sins.
Yep. Put your pride in your pocket where you put your money. That's what my father used to say.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's insightful.
Yeah, the old man was right on a bunch of things every now and then.
Now, my grandfather had a few sayings which I still use, and it drives my family nuts. So my grandfather's famous saying was, when you were finally doing something right, he would say, "Now you're cooking on the front burner."
Yeah, but it's you've graduated.
You graduate, yeah. And I say that to my son, and my wife just shakes her head.
Right.
And now my son's old enough to be like, "Why do you say that?"
It's a dad cliche.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it was a grandfather cliche.
Right.
Because my dad never used that one.
No.
That's
funny.
No, the one saying that I remember from my dad was, "Son, you can go to any college you want to, and I'll make it happen, but you will go to college."
Mm-hmm. It's amazing how important it was for them.
It was.
Back in that time.
It was.
And it's like, if you can go back and say, guys, stop with the freaking college. This is more about you than it is about us.
Yeah.
It's about your pride and your being able to slap a sticker on the back of the car that says, "My child attends fill in the blank school."
Well, but back at that time, I graduated in 1992.
Right.
And
high school or college?
From undergrad.
Okay.
Yeah. And I didn't get my master's degree till 2012. Mm-hmm. So I took a bit of a break. But to credit you, it's not exactly an easy thing to get a master's degree. No.
Oh.
No.
Well, whatever. Don't go be hard on yourself.
No. But back in 92, like graduating with a 4-year college degree, like that opened doors.
It gave you an edge.
It gave you an edge in 92. I don't know it does anymore.
It got so expensive and so out of hand, and it became more of a way to lend money, which the banks were interested in. It's much like housing, selling houses, and the American dream being reinvented to being akin to home ownership. It's like, no, that's not what the American dream is, guys. The American dream is the pursuit of happiness.
Yeah.
The ability to go out and make your own path and have the freedom to do that. That's unencumbered, okay, relatively. That's the American dream. It's not home ownership, because and it's like the sad thing about it that nobody realizes, you never really own your home.
Not really.
Not 100%.
Not
100%. Ever. You own the equity. That's it. If it gets equity, you do not own the home. And I say, I will challenge anybody, if you have property taxes, stop paying your property taxes. You'll find out real quick who owns your house. You don't own it.
Yeah.
You don't own it. It was actually one of the most popular clips I ever had on this podcast. My guest brought it up. I've been talking about this concept for probably 2 decades. And my guest brought it up out of the blue. And I'm like, dude, I know where you're going with this. And that thing has got probably collectively across the platforms about over 500,000 views.
Wow.
And all the arguments going in the comments section. Like, these guys, what are they saying? Not to pay your taxes? No, that's not what we're saying at all.
No, just saying, if you don't
own your house.
Yeah.
It's not, you never own your house. All right. Why did they fight the Revolutionary War? You know this answer.
I do.
What is
taxation without representation is not fair.
Right.
And for personal freedom.
Personal freedom, land ownership.
Yep.
Go out and pursue. I don't want to get off my back.
Yep.
British Empire. Okay. The monetary system had to be reinvented. We don't want central banks. Look where we are.
Well, actually, we did actually we actually did start our own bank, but only was like 25 years.
Yeah.
And because the first bank in the United States started, and then it wasn't ever renewed.
Right. And then we went through a series of trying to figure it out.
Right.
Like any other business that you're starting, but on a grand scale. It's just amazing to me how people don't realize that every war that's been fought is over money.
Or resources.
Yeah.
I mean, going back to the Rome thing, the first war that they fought was against a rival city called the Veiites. Mm-hmm. And one of the big catalysts was they were fighting over salt mines. Because that's what preserved food.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And when Julius Caesar was assassinated, centuries later, he was preparing to go east to fight the Persians,
Right.
which was, one of Rome's big enemies. And it wasn't like they were a threat, but they weren't an immediate threat. But they had resources.
Yeah.
And he was going to go after them because they had stuff like gold.
We want them.
We want it.
Yeah.
They had it. He wants it. And plus, even in modern history,
Yeah.
look how we've treated conquering, winning generals.
Right.
Eisenhower after World War II, Schwarzkopf after Desert Storm.
Right.
Those guys are idolized.
They are. They are.
Sometimes
But
you get to be president afterwards.
More wars are remembered, like World War II is obviously remembered. That happened during the upswing of we,
Yep.
80 years ago. Vietnam, like what was different about Vietnam was culturally the coins were flipped. So everything was in perfect alignment for World War II. The higher ups, the generals, the sergeants, things of that nature, and the privates, there was reverence for those guys. And they would, storm the beaches, even though it probably means your certain death. Go do it. There was a cultural, generational type of attitude that was in line with each other. But in Vietnam, it flipped. That's why I think Vietnam failed. Plus, Vietnam was just not a.
Well, with World War II, we had a focal point.
Yeah,
We're fighting Hitler.
Yeah, and the Japanese Empire
and the Japanese Empire. We're fighting the Axis powers, but that was personified in Hitler.
Yeah,
and then a more general thing with Japan.
Right,
and then Mussolini and Hitler were just kind of along for the ride.
And this is kind of brings up my point that I always talk about that. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it.
That's Voltaire. No. Yep.
But you know what? We're doomed to repeat it no matter what.
We are.
Because we do learn it.
Yeah.
Here's the difference. We have no idea what our grandparents went through. It wasn't our parents that went through World War II.
No, it was our grandparents.
We have no idea. They can't, unless our grandparents are still alive and can articulate what it was like. But even if they can, you can only tell a child so much, don't touch the hot stove.
Until eventually they touch it, they're going to touch it.
You're going to get some kids that just touch it because I want to know what your idea of hot was.
Well, that was one of the brilliant things that they did in that HBO series Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
Where they actually interviewed some of the guys.
That was a beautiful series.
as great as the fictionalized part was.
Right.
But, actually interviewing.
Was it fiction? I mean, it was dramatized.
It was dramatized. Okay, yeah, dramatized is a better word.
Based off actual. Those guys were real guys.
They were real guys,
and
what they did was real. It's a TV show.
Yeah, sure.
So you got to make it interesting.
But I think it was a Spielberg. Was it directed or produced?
Was it Tom Hanks?
Well, Spielberg and Hanks are like freaking best buds.
Yeah.
So that kind of makes sense that back at that time, because Spielberg was making. I believe Saving Private Ryan, and that might have been a spin-off. Yeah. Let's take this thing further.
But but to actually bring those guys on camera, to where you could see them and not only hear their words, from an informational standpoint, but hear their inflections.
Do you remember the guy who said, here I am sitting in a field firing at another fellow who might be interested in the same things that I'm interested in. He might like hunting. He might like fishing.
Yeah.
And here I am. He's like, I might like this guy.
Yeah.
And it was like, and I was watching it with pendulum on the brain. I'm going, wow, what a perfect explanation of the calamity that resets everything and a new mindset that comes out that says, okay, enough, because I might actually like this guy. Why are we doing this again?
Yeah.
And it's like even the Ukraine-Russia thing. Like the Russians, I felt like the Russian troops going, okay, why are we doing this? Why are we attacking them? I don't get it.
Well, they might be thinking that, but they're definitely not saying it out loud.
No, but you still that people in World War II, they knew why.
Yeah.
There was an intrinsic drive that pushed them. That always helps. That's culture.
Absolutely.
Right? Whenever you have a culture of troops on the front line that are like, okay, I'll do what you tell me to do. I know I have to, but I don't know why we're doing this. I don't really believe in the vision.
Yeah.
That affects a lot of things.
Well, you look at using World War II, there was an end game.
Right.
There was a solid end game.
Right.
We have to defeat Hitler.
Right. But I mean,
and
we
then
at the
Japan
time
in the Pacific.
At the time, we had no idea what Hitler was really up to either.
No, but at the same time, we knew he had, essentially, taken over free countries.
Yeah. He was invading,
and ideally didn't want to stop.
Yeah, but the true horrors didn't get revealed until
much later,
until everything was over.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that,
and then the contrast with what you said about Vietnam, we didn't have that solid end game.
It was a lot of the cynicism of the government, I think, started emerging around that time, because that was, again, the upswing. The 60s as we know it were the initial upswing into a me cycle. So there's me and we, and they're polar opposites. They mean entirely different things. The me cycle culminated in 1983 and then started heading back down. And at that point, when we're on the zeniths of either side, it's when we've taken a good thing too far. And that reparation, the repairing of that, is the downswing from those moments. The crossing, the tipping point was 03. And here we are at another zenith where we're taking it too far. What was a good thing in 03 is now we're getting ridiculous.
Yes.
Right? It feels utterly ridiculous. In 83, one of the things about being in a me is that it's all about me. I have, guru worship came out of that whole generation. You had Tony Robbins that came out of that, a lot of people that want to do self-improvement, things of that nature. I can solve the problem. It doesn't have to go to a committee, because I believe that a camel is a racehorse designed by a committee. That kind of mindset is what, that's even the cars in the 60s. The Corvette came out for the first time. Oh my gosh, that speaks my language. That's me.
That's when the Mustang was launched.
Right.
Yeah.
And they both had those types of cars that spoke to individuality.
The Thunderbird.
Right. But I mean, all those different cars came out for a reason at that time, and that's why they were popular. Up until then, you just had, family type of vehicles that just got a purpose done. They weren't fun.
Yeah.
The sports car was born in the 60s, really.
Yeah. Just a side note, my parents traded in a 1967 convertible Thunderbird for an simulated wood grain finish lime green Oldsmobile station wagon.
When did they do that?
After it was like around, it was right after I was born.
Yeah.
It might have been after my sister was born.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
they probably kicked themselves.
No, they're very practical about it. They're like, oh, no, we needed that kind of a car. And I'm like, no, you didn't.
Right.
I'm like, you know what a 67 convertible Thunderbird is worth now?
Oh my gosh. You know what a Suzuki Samurai is worth now? That was my first car.
I remember this. I don't even know what a Suzuki Samurai is.
It's like a mini Jeep.
I know what it is. I don't know what it's worth.
I mean, they're not worth millions or anything, but if you can get one in decent condition, you could probably get 10 or 15 grand for them.
Really?
It's crazy. I mean, it's a rare car. It has controversy attached to it because it was known for tipping.
Right. I remember that.
That was my first car, and I hated the hell out of that thing. But man, when it snowed, it got me where I needed to go.
Sure.
It was like a freaking warm knife through butter.
Yeah.
When it snowed. But I mean, those cars are worth a lot of money now. But I was glad when I got rid of it, man. I think I had sold it for $3 grand or something.
My first car was a 4-door 1980 Cadillac.
Oh, wow.
That it was I believe it was the last year, the last model Cadillac that had a cast iron engine.
Oh, wow.
So I told people that, it went from 0 to 60 in 3 days.
Yeah.
I mean, it had a heck of an engine, but when you're
rolling boat anchor.
well, we referred to it as the yacht because it had a sunroof.
Yeah. And it's funny, you see the cars now, they weigh a lot because they're, a lot of them are going electric, but the rest of the components on the car have to be lightweight.
Yeah.
So they feel cheap.
Yeah.
So.
And sometimes look cheap.
Yeah. So, I mean, here we are. It's kind of, we're experiencing what the 40s and 50s were. That's going to be what it's going to be like for the next 20 years, attitude-wise.
Does that mean we get Leave It to Beaver back?
I don't know. I mean, the only thing missing is the massive calamity, which is scary to say. And a lot of people, when they talk about it in the book, okay, how do you avoid that? And they say it always comes down to empathy, always.
So what you're saying is that COVID was not the massive calamity. We're still waiting for something else.
It could be. I mean, whether it's a battle or a war or something like that. I mean, I could see it coming here. We're not immune.
No.
in this country. I mean, at 1 EMP and we're done. And that's very possible. I mean, AI is scary enough
Yes.
with what's happening. I mean,
Well,
talk
you
about
know-
truth being indeed stranger than fiction. The freaking Terminator movies were far-fetched, but I'm like,
Not necessarily anymore.
that could happen.
Well, and with COVID, with the whole, there was people on both sides of the vaccine,
Yeah.
I'm not going to discuss, whatever, but I would jokingly tell people like, I know the end game here.
Yeah.
Like I watched the X-Files.
Yeah.
It was all about tagging humanity for the alien invasion.
Quite possibly. Or
Yeah.
they were...
And,
you know,
and I said, and I,
heard
would
this-
joke that tongue in cheek. I would,
Right.
yeah,
I heard this theory being brought up on another podcast. Someone said, well, those who didn't get the vaccine, why would the government foist this upon people when they know that people would fight it? You have the people that do take it. Why would they intentionally kill those people off? Those are the obedient ones. We want to
Yeah.
get rid of the disobedient ones. So let's get the obedient ones vaccinated for the next thing that's going to kill all the disobedient ones.
Wow. That is a seriously
I'm like,
that is a long range plan.
yeah, it is. But I mean,
That's like deep strategy there.
yeah. But I mean, a lot of the stuff that was considered conspiracy theory, I used to be really big into conspiracy theory stuff. And then when I realized it didn't help my life any, I just stopped listening. So, but all the stuff they talked about back then is commonplace now. It's not conspiracy.
Yeah.
It's true. And it's like even, the whole Alex Jones thing that they talked about and how crazy he can get now off the rails and some of his concepts and philosophies. A lot of the stuff he talked about, guy, he's being vindicated right now.
Yeah.
It's nuts. He called it out and it's happening. So,
I just wish that, if we're going back to the 50s, I really wish that the 50s and 60s would have been a little bit more accurate. In the sense that, back then they were telling people they would have flying cars by 2000.
yeah.
I would love to have a flying car.
Right.
I would love to have, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'd love to be able to be going into space right now.
The mere fact that we are getting so many electric cars on the road now should tell you something. That maybe we are indeed running out of oil.
Oh, well, it's a finite resource. We're
Yeah.
going to run out of it. The question is how soon?
Yeah.
You
And
know?
how do they make, they're pivoting right now to make money off the next thing, which are, mining for batteries and all that fun stuff.
Yeah, and that's where China has the lead.
Yeah. China has the lead also on LED technology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
They get all the
that's
rare
why
earth
that's why they've made so many inroads into Africa, where they have to mine a lot of those minerals.
That's a long game in action.
That
right
is
there.
a huge. Well, there was that. Oh my gosh, what was that movie? It was a Clint Eastwood movie. In the Line of Fire, where he plays the Secret Service agent.
Right.
And then the antagonist in there is the assassin who's trying to assassinate John Malkovich.
Right.
And he's sitting there, talking to a bunch of politicians, and he's like, we think about the next fiscal quarter,
Yeah.
and China, Japan, well, they think about the next quarter century.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that.
Yeah.
Is you're looking at a really long game there.
That's a discipline that is just so foreign to us here in the States because we don't like the notion of planting seeds, not knowing that we won't be able to see the tree that sprouts from it.
Well, the quote by Napoleon.
What's that?
So there was a point in time where Napoleon was marching his army through Paris, and he turned to one of his marshals and said, "We need to plant trees on the side of the road so that the armies can march in the shade."
Mm-hmm.
And the marshal said back to him, that will take decades.
Yeah.
And he goes, "Yeah,
Wasn't talking about this
he
one.
goes, we need to start right now for that."
Yeah.
Because he was thinking ahead.
Yeah.
And so, it goes back to that saying, when's the best time to plant a tree?
Today.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't do it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So when's the next best time?
Today. Yeah. Yeah, and it makes so much sense. So with all this knowledge and everything that you do, you talked about in conversations that we've had of you having your own podcast, and you would want it to be a history podcast.
Correct.
Which makes a lot of sense because you can talk the talk. You know it. You know? So what's stopping you?
That's a good question, Jim.
Because I think that, anytime you have a
little bit of time.
Right. Getting time to do it.
Getting time to do it. I would consider myself at sometimes an armchair historian and sometimes a real historian.
That's all right.
I mean, I've got the paper on the wall to prove that I know what I'm talking about, but I still don't know everything.
Right.
But
I mean, with the popularity of history shows and documentaries that are out there, why not?
Yeah.
Sponsored by Jay Galt.
Sponsored by, there you go.
Yeah. And that's how you get a little bit more business.
That's not a bad idea.
Thank you. Occasionally I have good ones.
You do
I have a lot of good ideas. Trouble is most of them suck. It's an old credit to George Carlin. That's a Carlinism right there.
Yeah. Well, ESPN used to have a commercial that said, there's no such thing as a stupid question, just stupid people that ask questions.
I was in a band that would basically just, lambaste it. If you asked anything bordering on a stupid question, it's like Spotlight of Doom for a month.
Wow.
Yeah.
What did you play?
Drums.
Of course.
I still. What does that mean? Of course, he says smugly.
You look like a drummer.
You look like one of those people. No, it makes sense because I like sitting behind something. I don't like being exposed and vulnerable. I can get up in front of a crowd.
Take away all the electronics and throw a drum set in front of you. You're fine.
Yeah,
you don't even have to move.
Nope.
You could have the roadie crew just pull all this stuff out. Throw a set of drums in front of you. You don't even have to move.
That's an interesting new desk concept.
It is.
Yeah. Nothing is made out of cymbal stands and drums.
Yeah.
I have to look into that. Interesting.
I will have to say this. One of the coolest things I've ever seen at a concert was a guy who had an electronic drum kit. Except he wasn't sitting down. He was standing up. And the electronic drum pads were hanging from like a structure. Mm-hmm. It was almost like pots and pans,
right,
hanging like in the middle of a kitchen. No.
Okay.
No, but he was like essentially standing, standing tall with his drumsticks, and he was just banging on that electronic drum kit.
Let me ask, was it Yes?
No.
Really?
They didn't use electronic drum kits.
Well, Yes did. That's Bill Bruford.
Bill Bruford did later, but not in the 70s.
Not in the 70s.
No, I don't know the name of the drummer, but he was the drummer for Howard Jones in the 80s.
Oh my gosh.
Don't Try to Live Your Life in One Day. Remember that guy?
I almost want to say it's Mickey Curry for some reason, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
But Bill Bruford
did it for a while.
Yeah.
Did it for a while with when they did the Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman, and Howe album.
They did that, and then they had the Union tour, which was my first concert, 1990 or 91.
Which pretty much every member of Yes has disowned that album.
The Union?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, because one of the things that apparently the record company got involved in post-production, and so there are times where music is playing and none of it is being played by a member of Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
Are you a Yes aficionado?
My favorite group.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Because you were instantly like, no, he's never. I'm like, well, I know he used electric drums at some point.
Yeah. Technically not with Yes.
Right.
It was when Chris Squire and John Anderson were
the core.
Well, no, when they had kind of separated a little bit.
Okay.
And so John Anderson got together with Steve Howe, Bill Bruford, and Rick Wakeman.
Yeah, Anderson, Bruford, Wakeman.
Yeah, and they were going to make an album, a Yes album, and
it might as well have been.
It is.
Yeah.
But Chris Squire objected to them using the Yes name because he wasn't in it.
Right.
And so they had to come up with something else. It's a great album.
It is a great album.
It's a fantastic album. I mean, it's better than some of the quote unquote legitimate Yes albums.
There was definitely more rigidity to it because Bruford is a disciplined drummer while Alan White is he's a rock progressive guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I got to see I got to see them on their 35th anniversary tour at Red Rocks in Colorado.
Really?
That was phenomenal.
You ever see the video where Geddy Lee steps in and plays bass with them on Roundabout?
At the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I think so.
Yeah.
Because I think Squire he might have passed by
He'd
then.
already passed away. Yeah.
So they needed a bass player. Why not Geddy Lee?
Well, I think he's been a fan.
I'm sure he was.
Yeah,
because they kind of came up together.
Yeah.
Yeah. They both came out in Yes was late 60s.
Late like 67, 68 was their first album.
Dude, maybe you need to do a music podcast.
I don't know enough.
No?
I don't know. I know a lot about Yes.
Right.
That's about it.
See, I would claim to know a lot about Rush, but I really don't know a lot.
I will have to say that there are two groups that I really regret not seeing in concert.
You never saw Rush?
I never saw Rush.
Wow.
And I really would have loved to have seen Queen.
Yeah.
I really would have loved to have seen. I mean, I've seen enough video of Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
But he's just one of those guys of like, I would have loved to have seen him live.
Enigma.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was glad to see, I'm proud to say that I saw Eddie Van Halen in concert.
Yeah.
And Van Halen several times. I've seen Rush probably 7 or 8 times, and they're always loud.
Yeah.
Or at least they were. And it's funny, I have my visceral reaction on video when I found out, or the day that Neil died. I was doing a podcast with Mr. Rich Redmond in his studio, and we had a guest on. I can't remember the kid's name, unfortunately. I'm bad at that. I think his name was Cole. He played the drummer in a movie called I Can Only Imagine. It was about Mercy Me and the song I Can Only Imagine.
Oh, okay. Oh, that sounds cool.
So he played the drummer in the movie. And he was a huge we're all huge Neil fans, right?
Yeah.
So Rich is conducting the interview. I'm looking at my computer, taking notes, looking up different things, acting as executive producer and co-host. And it literally came across my feed that Neil died. And you see me just go, oh, I mean, it hit me in the gut.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best rock
childhood hero, man.
Best rock drummer of all time.
It's hard to quantify.
Second best drummer of all time.
He's a people's drummer.
Yeah.
There are guys out there that could out-chop the crap out of him.
Yeah.
All right. He was a people's drummer, a force to be reckoned with, perfectionist, had the muscle memory. Even watching the last documentary that they made was mostly about him.
Yeah.
There was Beyond the Lighted Stage, and there was something else that came out, and I want to say in 2016. It was on their last tour, and it was documenting ramping down to that final show in L.A., and it was all Neil. He was just tired. He's like, look, I am 63 years old, and playing this stuff every single night is a marathon.
Well, and especially with how technically precise that he played.
Yep.
I mean, that
all of them.
That ain't easy.
No.
It's not.
It's funny, the video, the first documentary that came out, I think it was in 2013 or 2012, the Beyond the Lighted Stage. My wife's not a huge Rush fan.
My wife is not a Rush fan.
We sat and watched this documentary, and she's like, I may not be a fan, but I've got a massive appreciation for them now, because I had no idea that Geddy did that much.
Yeah.
He sings, he plays keys, he plays bass, he plays stuff with his feet.
Yeah.
My gosh.
It's impressive, really. Yeah. It's very much impressive.
Alex was a slacker, man. Pick it up, dude. What are you doing? Playing your Guitar over there in the freaking stage left?
Well, it's, if you ever see a Yes concert and you've got John Anderson up there and he's got a guitar.
Yeah.
He's got a harp.
Yep.
He's over there, playing a triangle.
Just being weird.
And whatever those
with his high pitched voice.
His alto tenor voice, and then he's got like a wind chime up there, and it's like it's cool, but it's like you got Steve Howe on one side of the stage,
just a monster.
As far as
Wakeman is a monster.
Yeah,
gosh.
Chris Squire.
Yeah,
and then Alan White back there playing the drums. I mean, he's surrounded by people who are, without question, on the short list of greatest people to ever play their instrument.
And their robes that they wear while they play.
Well, that was only Wakeman, though.
Well, even with Squire I remember.
Squire wore weird clothing, but it was Wakeman with the capes.
Like, I remember watching that show, and he just, because it was a rotating stage, and when it came around to, and he would be on, he'd just be looking at the audience like, with the Robert De Niro, curmudgeon, like, I hate my life look on his face. And I'm like, that's all I remember of that guy. I'm like, are you not happy? He was like, he just wants to get on the mic and tell everybody to F themselves. He just got that look about him.
Yeah.
Like, just,
He had a stern look.
Oh my God.
John's just up there, in the fourth dimension.
Yeah, he's a happy-go-lucky.
He's a happy-go-lucky guy. You know, that I was actually offered backstage passes to see one of their concerts.
Wow.
And I turned them down.
Really?
Yeah, and part of it was, just there's the public persona of any music group. And what they look like on stage.
You don't want to meet your heroes.
No, and this friend of mine who offered them, she goes like, you just want to maintain the illusion, don't you?
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I do actually.
Yeah.
I don't need to know what's going on behind the curtain. At least not with not music.
It always drove me nuts that Neil never did meet and greets. Drove me back. I'm like, dude,
really? I didn't know that.
He never wanted to. He's like, it's just not my thing. Well, dude, that's part of the gig, man. You're a public persona. You knew what you signed up for. It's fed your.
But did he back in the day? They were just making music, and meet and greets were not a thing in the 70s.
No, but a fame that came along. It's like, look, this thing could take off, and he was a part of the band as they were starting to go down the rise. He wasn't the original drummer.
No, he was not the original drummer.
Yeah, so
thank goodness they made that switch.
Right, because he became, he brought them to a whole new level and became their lyricist.
Yeah,
and he was just a bookworm and just wanted to be left alone. And I get it, but I've heard stories where he just would just shrug off people. It's like, dude, you can't do that when you've influenced so many people. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's just inexcusable. And, I hate to speak not poorly about him, post-mortem, but it's I don't know. Maybe I think he kind of mellowed out about that in later life.
Pardon the pun, but, not everybody's happy in the limelight.
True. That is true.
Even though that's where they perform.
They didn't expect it. They didn't think it through.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anonymous wealth. That's where it is.
Anonymous wealth.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't feel like I need to be famous.
No.
I do if this happens to make me famous, this podcast, fine. Whatever.
Well, there's some states, if you win the Powerball, that if you form, like some kind of corporate entity, a state or a trust or whatever, the trust attorney can go and pick up the check, your Powerball check, without having to reveal
who you are.
Now, not every state is like that, but right. I'm like, I find it brilliant that the states that will allow that, just so, because it's,
no idea what you're getting into.
No idea what you're getting into.
People come out of the woodwork.
Well, and you just, how many stories of people who've won, tens of millions in the lottery, and then it ruins their lives.
It does. And it's gobs of money amplifies who you are. Always has.
Yeah.
It amplifies who you are. So if you're giving, naturally a giving person, it's going to be good because you're going to have resources. If you're just kind of a jerk, it's going to amplify that side of you.
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot.
And maybe Neil Peart just didn't want to have certain aspects amplified.
He also had a rough run of it. His wife and his daughter died in the same space of a year. And he got remarried and everything. But it's like, how do you go into something like dating a guy like that?
I don't know.
It's like, did he have game, you think?
you would hope so.
But,
but he is Neil Peart.
Right. He's just awkward and, he never cracked a smile. He was always just a face of sheer concentration.
But that's what he was like publicly.
Yeah.
Privately.
Yeah.
You get him one-on-one.
I think he got silly with the guys.
I have no doubts.
He would run off that stage and just get me out of here. Get me on my bike and I'm off to the next. And he would literally, his highlight in that, if you watch that documentary, he's got a paper map, not even Google Maps on a phone or an iPad or anything. He literally opens up a giant paper atlas and puts it on the floor wherever they're going to be. And he plans his next route. He's like, oh, this looks interesting. I can take my bike through here. And
wow.
His security guy and him would just ride to the next gig.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. I'm like, dude, I hope you get there in time.
Well, this kind of travels backwards to what, earlier in the podcast, but, Sam Walton flew his own plane.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Time machine. Here's a guy who's worth billions.
Yeah.
Could have a corporate Learjet with his own private.
Cessna?
It was something small like that. Yeah, it was a little Cessna. And apparently, the stories that trickled down were, he would make executives go with him.
Yeah.
And apparently Sam wasn't exactly the best pilot in the world.
Right.
So,
Well, you're in a Cessna, so you might as well be in a paper airplane for crying out loud with a rubber band.
It's like, hey, you're going to, hey, Sam's flying you to Oklahoma City. Great.
Wonderful.
Let's make sure the life insurance is paid up and I have a will
fly
in
in
place.
the cargo hold of a regular jet. God's sake. It's like, Sam, can we just, can we bump up a little bit for crying out loud? Can you learn how to fly a dual jet engine?
Or just, certified? You know what? You've got the money.
Yeah.
Why don't you just hire somebody?
Just hire somebody. Yeah. Just do fractional ownership. Okay.
Right.
Net jets. Let's do that. How about that? Can we do net jets? Come on, Sam.
I'm sure there were pilots who would have been more than happy to move to Bentonville, Arkansas,
to be his pilot.
To be his pilot,
maybe. But I mean, you got to appreciate a guy who knows the grit and what it took to build a business like that. He held on to his roots. There was a nursing home in what was it? It was just on the New York, Connecticut border. And we used to have to service them for phone systems back in the day. My father owned a phone system interconnect company. And we put their phone system in. It was second generation owned. The first generation, their parents were elderly, but the mother still, worked amongst all the other girls in the little cubicles. She had no airs about her. The father had his own office, and it was, humble. But the kids, talk about Greenwich rich, speaking through the teeth and everything. I mean, just complete. That's what I mean. It's like sometimes it's not good to leave the money to the kids.
Yeah,
because it creates monsters.
And then they leave them to the cat. Then they leave their money to the cat.
Right. I mean, shows like Arrested Development exist for a reason.
They do.
Yeah. And, Succession.
I got to watch that show.
Oh, my gosh. You want to talk about a whole bunch of cast of characters that you hate every single one of them? That's the kind of show it is.
Wow.
It's like, you guys are all just despicable pricks. That's all.
Wow.
Even the father. It's like, my gosh, I would never think to treat my kids like that.
Yeah, I honestly don't know if I could.
Yeah. But with that said, how do everybody find and follow you? How do they get a hold of you if they want to look into their business credit and such?
Right. So contact information, best way to get me is my cell phone.
Okay.
Which is just...
Well, I could probably put it in the description.
Yeah. Cell phone and email address. You can also go to my website. And there's...
What is the website?
It's jgalt.io/mclark.
So we'll put that down there in the description as well.
And there's a
Is it JAY or the letter J?
Just the letter J.
Okay.
And then GALT.
Okay.
And there's a link on the website to actually schedule a consultation.
Very nice. Very cool. Sets up a nice little Calendly or something like that.
Calendly is exactly.
Very good. Very good. Well, go check it out. All the information's in the description. This has been a massively fun conversation. I love talking about music, history, and business.
You didn't know, but you had no clue about the yes.
I had nothing. Yeah. Hey, we got another connection point. Why not?
There we go.
So check them out. Go. The website's in the description. I can't recall. I'm going to try and recall it. jgalt.io/mclark.
Correct.
Really?
There you go.
Nice.
Right on.
No, other one. There we go. All the information in the description. If you want to build your business's credit, Michael Clark has got the way for you to do it. So make sure you reach out to him. It's very, very important. I think I'm going to do it myself with our business. Also, of course, check us out at whatsyourproblempodcast.com. Again, shooting for 10,000 average downloads. It's been a while. This is probably going to be the kickoff to season 3, or at least the second episode for season 3. We're going to keep on pushing forward. If you know anybody that's a good fit for the podcast, or if you've got some comments or anything, check us out. whatsyourproblempodcast.com. Share, subscribe, rate, and review. The big 4 quadrilogy that you got to kind of cover. Michael, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Jim.